Today we are doing 7.4 phase shifts on sine, cosine, secant, cosecant problems. Up till now, what we've talked about is what the A value does. The A value measures the steepness of the graph. We talked about the D value. The D value moves your graph up or down. And we also talked about the B value, that was 7.3. That's going to change your period. It's going to horizontally compress or stretch it. Now, there's one more thing. This is the new stuff right here. You are going to have what we call a phase shift. You're going to start your graph not necessarily on the X or Y axis, but you're going to start it shifted over, left or right, depending on what this is. So a phase shift means you're moving your graph left or right. So we're beginning in a spot other than the origin. So you want to remember, just like, remember how we did something like this? What did this do? This shifted your graph how many units? 3 to the right. Well, that's what these are. These are a shift, left or right. So let's talk about this right here. That's your A value. That's going to talk about your amplitude. That's going to be 2 units off the x-axis. This is going to be your shift 4 units up. Now what you have to do here, just like we did the last few days, that's your B value, 3. You've got to pull this 3 out of this pi. So you're going to divide pi over 3 to get a phase shift of pi over 3 units to the right. So, I'm going to cover this to not confuse you. This is what you have. You're going to pull your B value out. So your amplitude is 2. Your period, how do you find the period? Well, we did this in 7.3. If it's a sine or a cosine graph, you're going to take 2 pi and divide it by b, and b is 3. So what is 2 pi divided by 3? It's 2 pi divided by 3. That's your period. That's how long it's going to take for your cycle to go. It's going to take 2 pi over 3. Now your increments. What you do is you take this period, 2 pi over 3, and you're going to cut it into 4 parts, because there's 4 increments for sine and cosine. So when you do that, this 2 cancels with this 2, and you get pi over 6. So you're going to be counting, you're going to count by pi over 6. But this right here is your start position. That's called your phase shift. You are going to start at pi over 3 units to the right. And this is going to be up 4. Vertical or up. Now this is where the tricky part is. This is your start position. You're going to start here at pi over 3 units to the right. So if you look at, just draw pi over 3 to the right. Now this is where it gets tricky, is you're going to be counting by pi over 6. It's very difficult to count by pi over 6 when you're starting at pi over 3. So what you want to do is get these 2 in the same denominator. I would turn this into 2 pi over 6. 2 pi over 6 is the same as pi over 3. Why do I want to call my start position 2 pi over 6? Because now I can count by pi over 6. So make this 2 pi, that's your start position, and your increments are pi over 6. So when you add pi over 6 to this, you get 3 pi over 6, and you get 4 pi over 6, and 5 pi over 6, and 6 pi over 6. So you're starting, that's your phase shift at pi over 3 units or 2 pi over 6. So now you want to go up 4 units. So imagine, here's your 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're gonna be an amplitude of 2, but it's upside down. So you're starting right here, and you're gonna go down 2, which would be here, and you're gonna go back on, and then you would go 2 above. So right here, and then back on. So this is actually your graph. So it did not start, this graph did not start on the y-axis. So where is the y-axis? If you were to go backwards, what's this gonna be? This would be 1 pi over 6, and back again, this would be your y-axis right here. Sorry, I went a little over, this would be 0. So now, if I wanted to continue this pattern, I would be here, and then here. Yeah. So, I graphed from here to here. I need you to understand that although I started here on this graph, it's a phase shift pi over 3 to the right, which is right there, I can rename this graph. If I started right here, I can rename this as y equals, starting in this spot, it's now a cosine graph. And it'd be a positive 2 amplitude, and your b value is going to be 3, but it's a phase shift of pi over 6 to the right, and then plus 4. I could start right here. I could name this graph right here, y equals negative 2 cosine, the b value is 3, and then this would be x minus 3 pi over 6, and then plus 2. I could start here, I could start here, I could start here, I could even start right here. If I name this graph from here, this would be a sine curve. This would be y equals 2 sine 3x, there's no phase shift, and then plus 4. So depending on where you start, that's going to be the name of your graph. But for right now, I'm just showing you how to graph this one. This one would be from here to here, 1 full period. Let's do another one. Next one. I'm going to cover this so you see me do the whole thing. Here's your equation. It's y equals 3 cosine 2t, and this should be f of t. F of t, because I'm using t here. Okay, so first thing you want to do, here's your b value. Pull that out. How do you pull that out? And we did this months ago. How do you pull that 2 out? You want to pull it, this is your phase shift. It's not 2 pi to the left, it's going to be something else. Anyone know? Hmm? You're pulling, this is your b value, you're pulling it out of these two. So think of it as dividing. So, what do we have here? What's your amplitude? Right there. That's your amplitude. How do you figure out your period? You do 2 pi, and now it's going to be over the b value's 2, which is pi. You take your period, and to do your increments, you take this and cut it into 4. Now, here's your phase shift. This is your start position. I'm just going to write PS for phase shift. You're going to start at pi to the left. Or you could write negative pi if you want. You're starting here. But if I'm going to count by pi over 4, how can I rename this so when I add pi over 4 to it, it's easy? it'd be negative 4 pi over 4. Does that make sense? You want to get this in fourths. So I multiply both top and bottom by 4. So you are going to start here. Start here. And then your vertical shift is down 2. So how are you going to graph this? You're going to start at negative 4 pi over 4. So this is what I do. I draw my negative 4 pi over 4. And now we're going to count by pi over 4. So if I went pi over 4 this way, what do I have? Negative 3 pi over 4. Negative 2 pi over 4. Negative pi over 4. 0 pi over 4. 2 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4, and so forth. So you are going to start here. So let's just draw a line here. And we need to go 2 units down. And there's 1, 2. So you're going to start here. Now it's the cosine graph. What does the cosine graph look like? And it's a positive 3. Where should we start? You're going to start right here, 3 up. So it's above, on, you're going to go 3, 1, 2, 3. Go down here, here, and here. So that's 1 full period. And then if you wanted to do another one, you just keep going. So now you should understand that from here, this is the name of the equation right here. But I could turn this graph, if I started here, I could rename this graph as, anyone know? What's the amplitude? What's the amplitude? It stays the same, but it's going to be a negative 3 here. This is going to be the sine curve because it's upside down. See how it's going upside down? Your B value is going to stay the same. It's 2. And this is a phase shift, 3 pi, if I started here, this would be x plus 3 pi over 4, and then minus 2. If I started right here, this equation would be y equals negative 3 cosine 2, and then if I started here, x plus 2 pi over 4 minus 2. If I started right here, this would be y equals 3 sine 2, and then x minus pi over 4 minus 2. If I started right here, what would this one be called? Y equals 3 cosine 2x, and then minus 2. Are you getting this? Okay. Next one. Do we graph the cosecant graph off of that? No. What do we jump right into? We jump into the reciprocal graph, which is negative 2 sine 3, and then you're going to pull out the 3, obviously. You get t plus 2 pi when you pull out the 3 here. So we want to figure out what the amplitude is. It's 2 of the sine graph. It's 2. You do 2 pi over 3, that's your period. Cut that into 4 parts, you get pi over 6. Your phase shift is going to be 2 pi to the left. So now I want to convert this into negative 12 pi over 6 because I'm going to count by pi over 6. So I'm starting at negative 12 pi over 6, and I'm going to add 1 pi over 6, which is negative 11 pi, then negative 10 pi, negative 9 pi, negative 8 pi, negative 7 pi, and I wrote them down here because if I wrote them here, it's too messy. So do your shift 2 units up, vertical, and do your sine graph upside down. Starting here, you go down 2, on, above, on, below, on, above, on. That is 2 full periods. Do your asymptotes at your zeros, and then draw your graphs. So the new part of this whole lesson is this phase shift. That's your start position. Do you understand this? Okay. Now, the last thing you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to write an equation. They're gonna give you some information. And it says for this, the amplitude, I want the sine curve, I want an amplitude of 2. 2 is what goes in front. It said reflecting over the x-axis, that's why we put a -2. The period is 8 pi, so if the period is 8 pi, you're gonna set this equal to 2 pi over b. We need to find b. How do you find b? You're gonna cross multiply, so you get 8 pi b equals 2 pi. These pi's cancel. I'm solving for b. So divide by 8, and b is 1/4. So far you have y equals, you have a reflection over the x-axis, amplitude of 2. It's a sine curve. Your b value is 1/4. And it's a phase shift 2 to the right. So it's gonna be t, if it's to the right, it's not plus 2, it's minus 2. And then down 1. And that's your answer right there. Now some people will distribute this 1/4, and that's fine with me. Make sure you put that in parentheses and then -1. So either way is good. Now I already talked about this stuff right here when I showed you how you can rename these graphs. Go back to this one. We did this graph. This is the cosine graph. If I asked you to rename this graph anywhere, you should be able to rename it. So we started here. What if I wanted to start it right here? Can you tell me what the name of this graph is, starting in this spot right here? It's a sine. What kind of sine? Positive or negative? Good. What's the amplitude? 3. So it'd be a -3 sine. The b value is the b value. It's not going to change. 2. Now, this is a phase shift. If we start right here, how many units did we go to the left? We went 3 pi over 4. So you're going to write x plus 3 pi over 4. And then a shift 2 units down. What if I wanted to start this right here? What would this graph be called from here? It'd be y equals -3 what? Cosine 2, and that's a shift 2 pi over 4 to the left. So x plus 2 pi over 4, and then -2. What if I wanted to start right here? It'd be a +3 sine 2 x minus, or plus pi over 4, and then -2. What if I wanted to start here? Are you guys getting this? There is no phase shift because it's 0. And then -2. Okay. What if I started here? -3 sine 2, and then x minus pi over 4, -2. Are you getting this?
So you just look at like where you start?
Yep, that's your phase shift. So if I started right here, it's a shift pi over 4 units to the right, which is minus pi over 4. And it's upside down. See, if I went right here, it's going down. It's starting on, so it's going below, so it's gonna be a -3 amp. -3 is your A value. If I started here, this would be a negative cosine, -3 cosine. If I started here, it's gonna be a +3 sine. Here, it's a +3 cosine. So depending on where you start. Okay, you think you guys are okay with this? So what your homework is there's this page right here, this page right here, and this page. That's all I want you to do up till. We're gonna work on these today and tomorrow. Okay?
So just one to
Do all of
six.
these.
Oh.
We're gonna do the tangent and cotangent on Friday. Now, these are gonna take a while, we have to go through this whole packet, this is not all one day work. So I want you to just stick with, this is a long assignment, and since today's a Wednesday, I'm giving you, we're gonna work on these tomorrow in class, today and tomorrow. So I want you to start it, it's a lot of work here. So today and tomorrow, I will go over these, I want you to practice them. Doing exactly what we just did, that's your homework. You guys, okay?